One of the most important and exciting periods in a person's lifetime are their university years, which are full of new experiences, growth, and learning that truly shape their future career. But over the years, tuition costs and expenses have increased dramatically, making it more and more difficult for all to achieve and live the American dream. In 2012, 17.7 million students were estimated to have enrolled in a university institution across the country. This has been an increase of 15% since 2000. The rise signifies the importance in the relationship between higher education and the workplace, as better degrees equals a more competitive working environment which will increase companies' profits and therefore the economic system of America. State and federal funding has vastly diminished from an average of $9,000 per student to $6,000 per student, with an overall decrease of 17.4% according to reports. This means that with an increase of students and a decrease of funding, paying for college has become more difficult and scholarships have become more competitive, which may deny some individuals the opportunity of a higher education. Differences between in-state and out-of-state prices, academic, athletic and need-based scholarships, and public versus private school funding all factor in when choosing where to further your college education. Here is what your fellow peers have to say when it comes to paying for college.
I'm in-state.
I'm out-of-state.
In-state.
I'm an in-state student.
I'm an in-state student. Out-of-state.
I'm an out-of-state student.
I'm in-state.
I have a scholarship.
Scholarship? What kind of scholarship?
It's basically full tuition and I pay for housing.
Oh, no.
I'm relying mostly on scholarships like Zell Miller, mostly for everything.
Well, I'm getting some help from my parents, but basically just money that I've saved up during high school is what I'm using right now.
I've taken out a couple of loans.
Well, my parents right now are paying for most of it, but I'm hoping to tie in some scholarships with that.
A combination of the Hope Scholarship and then just student loans.
Yeah, I think it's fair because we pay taxes in the state. Most states have reduced tuition for in-state. I know not a lot have as big of a difference as Georgia, but it's definitely an appealing factor to keep people in state who would otherwise leave.
I guess with all the scholarships and the loans and things that students use, it evens out, but I think for a school like Georgia Tech, the in-state and out-of-state tuition, the difference is a little drastic, and that could be remedied.
Just because you're out-of-state doesn't mean you should be denied the same education. And if your state doesn't happen to have a place like Penn State or Georgia Tech, then you shouldn't have to pay 4 times as much just to get what other people get for living in a different area.
Absolutely. I come from a family of 5 kids and with 2 in college. That's kind of, or 2 and now 3 in college. That's something where you gotta worry about how much it's going to cost to get.
It certainly, when I got my scholarship, it certainly helped me make my decision to come here.
Not in the case of Georgia Tech. I think if I had gone to a different in-state school, it might have been a little bit different. Just in terms of quality of education, though, Georgia Tech, I would have paid, even if I was out of state, I would have come here and I would have paid for it. So not necessarily for me. I think because it is such a specialized school, people are willing to pay for it, whether they're in-state or out-of-state.
Well, actually, I'm a transfer student from Georgia Southern, which is why I went there in the first place, was to save money, because it's a lot less competitive for scholarships down there. So basically, they have a transfer program, and I did that to save money.
Making more of a standard, perhaps, because, I mean, I do agree that the better the school, the more expensive it should be, because the people have to be paid a little bit more and all, but not quite as expensive. The difference between $1,000 a semester and $50,000 a semester seems a little extreme. Maybe regulating it a little bit more, keeping it a little less extreme.
I don't know if it's necessarily a government issue. I think that the board of directors or whatever of the school would have to decide on that. But, I mean, I guess there could be some sort of vote on it. You know, if the government were to have a say in a matter, it would just be to facilitate a vote.
I really like the way the government's trying to go now with trying to lower the cost of tuition for college students. I think that's a good thing. And also just making even more things in the future, like Zell Miller, for maybe students not from Georgia, so they can have a way to pay for their tuition.
Differences between both political parties on higher education are less polarized than other partisan issues. Democrats believe in an increase in funding, and Obama's budget for 2013 allocates a 2.5% increase in funding for student loans through federal and state aid. Offering incentives like research funding is fundamental to improving the situation, according to the Democrats. But he also wants to develop community colleges in order to provide everyone with equal opportunity. The Republicans have similar views on expanding community colleges and also skills and trade schools to increase opportunities for jobs in America. Romney believed that more student loans should be funded by the private sector in order to release the burden from the federal government. But the question is, what do we think the government should do in order to enable access to college education?
Higher education is important because in today's growing world, a student needs to be as well learned as possible to succeed. Statistics show that 50% of college graduates cannot find jobs in their majors, so the highest possible education is imperative for working.
The debate between in-state and out-of-state tuition is one that's very relevant in today's world, especially in our country. Here at the Georgia Institute of Technology, the difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition is nearly $15,000. This is something that will decide whether someone can come to a higher institution like this, or will have to settle for a university such as Tennessee in their home state. Now, in-state versus out-of-state tuition is something that our group as a whole decided is not a debate that needs to be taking place. There should be one tuition for all students so that barrier and divide isn't necessary.
Now that the election is over, we have heard the stance on higher education in both the Democratic and Republican parties. It is our group's opinion that the ideas in both parties should be fused together to produce a policy that will greatly benefit the higher education system as a whole in the United States.
So in conclusion, there are basically two options. You can have more federal control and have the government give out more federal grants, such as Pell grants, or you can have more state control and let the states decide. Our group decided that we need more federal control, so as a whole over the nation, students can know what they expect to get in.